It's space weather! Looking at the sun at 171 angstroms. We got an active region rising, not to be confused with a sunspot. We got a sunspot setting. And as it does so, sending off the largest X-ray flare that we've received in quite some time. And there it is, right at the end of the video. Here's a look in 304 angstroms. Some other eruptive activity also on the sun, not to be confused with the incredible amount of eruptive activity on Earth from volcanoes. Here's the magnetogram. There's the setting sunspot. There's the active region that's rising. No umbra associated with that, not a sunspot. And let's take a quick look at the 94 angstroms view also. I apologize for that temporary aside. The coffee was done. See that X-ray flare coming out right at the end of the video. And there are the magnetic lines. We do notice some spiky behavior on the magnetometer that we'll cover in a minute. First, check out spaceweathernews.com. There's your X-ray flare. Again, the largest one we've had in quite a while. Not quite C-class. And let's look at the real-time solar wind. And the real-time solar wind is showing us BTBZ is fairly convergent here. Phi angle is up around 315, so no significant sun-to-earth magnetic connection. Solar wind density is around 7 protons per cubic centimeter. And solar wind speed is still elevated around 500 kilometers per second. You can see these spikes in the magnetometer. We will look at the source of that on the Gong 2 in a minute. KP is currently at 3. Here's your Cygnets forecast. That is through January 11th. Now we've got an uptick in the electron flux as we usually get. Probably going to drop back down. I'm not sure if we're going to see as big of a dip as we did yesterday. The coronal hole wind stream should end at some point today. A little bit of charging hazard, but nothing significant. And the F2 layer is looking a little anomalous, as it has for weeks. Especially this discharge area right here in the South Pacific. South Atlantic, near the South Atlantic anomaly. How anomalous. And there's your aurora forecasts. Nothing too special going on. Next, let's look at the GOES X-ray imager to verify that the X-ray came out of that sunspot. Zoom in on that area. Should be right near the end of the video. And there you see your X-ray flare. Don't freak out about the object moving in front of the X-ray, the X-ray imager here. This is from the GOES. That's the moon. There was a solar eclipse. And we will leave links to the solar eclipse on Wikipedia, as well as the rest of the sites we're visiting. Next, let's look at the globalincidentmap.com, quakes.globalincidentmap.com for the last 11 hours of quakes. Fiji gets another deep, 431 kilometer deep, 4.9 magnitude quake. Japan gets the largest one Japan's seen in quite a while, 5.8 in Chichishima. Alaska and California look like they're rocking over the past 4 to 7 hours. And Alaska gets a 5.0. Iran gets a 4.7. No significant uptick there. However, volcanoes are another story. Major uptick there. I don't know if anybody's doing the calculation on how much this cools the planet, but for those of you who remember, in 1991 when Pinatubo erupted, or in 1980 when Mount St. Helens erupted, those measurably cooled the planet. So here's the rundown. Check this out. Stromboli violently erupting, just ongoing, sending up 200-meter high lava spatter. And the real stars of the day are Shivaluch, sending up a 25,000-foot ash plume and an 18,000-foot ash plume, Sakurajima, an 8,000-foot ash plume, Krakatau, a 45,000-foot ash plume in an ongoing fashion. I could not imagine what the total amount of ash that producing is. Also, there are large cracks going right across the island associated with violent shaking explosions the past 2 weeks. The cracks are deep and emitting steam and ash, and if another collapse occurs during these cracks, it could involve a volume of estimated 67 million cubic meters of material. Even though it is a bit less than what the avalanche on December 22nd removed, it could still trigger a dangerous tsunami. Next, we've got Merapi, which is estimated to have reached 415,000 cubic meters volume ejecta. Dukono, a 7,000-foot plume, and that's an ongoing thing. Popocatépetl erupting again. Santiaguito, never heard of that one. That one now volcanic ash advisory. Fuego, volcanic ash advisory. Reventador. Sabancaya, 25,000-foot ash plume there. 15,000-foot ash plume at Planchon Peteroa. So yeah, that's a lot of earthquakes. Are we still convinced that the Earth is warming? Because earthquakes cool the planet, folks. I draw your attention to the sea ice thickness and extent in the the North Pole. And yeah, so there's ice coming down the Canadian coast. There's ice on southeast Greenland. By the way, the Gulf Stream comes up through here like this. So yeah, I don't see any vanishing ice. Let's look at the gong too, to see the magnetic lines in all of their glory. And we'll show you when there's going to be another spike in the magnetometer. Keep in mind this data is almost 2 hours old. Right at the end of the video, something is happening. So, this is pretty recent here. You see this little bubble opening up in this area. I'll let that play through again. That's going to be a disconnect reconnect thing. It's going to cause a magnetometer spike. Just saying, it's not going to cause any, just a spike in the magnetometer. But there's going to be a disconnection reconnection kind of a thing happening there. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Here's your geospace movie here. This is the velocity. Viewing this because we have an increased solar wind speed. Let that play through. And finally, let's look at the magnetic perturbations here. Geospace Delta B. Some significant perturbations over northeastern Canada there. Also in the South Indian Ocean, as we've been seeing in the past few days. Let that play through one more time. See some perturbations there centered on Hawaii and on Alaska. Let's check out the 335 angstroms view from the SDO for once. Take a look at the active rising region. And the area from which the X-ray flare emanated. Again, keep in mind, it's not even a C-class flare, but it is the largest flare we've seen in quite a while. And finally, we got a 193 angstroms view from the SDO. Again, we'll leave links to everything. Thanks for viewing. Thanks, subscribers. Thanks, subscribers, for helping us get to 1,000, although we're not there yet. We expect to be soon if we stop getting censored. And there's your most recent solar activity in 193 angstroms. Remember, when you're staring at X-ray flares, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at X-ray flares anyway.